it's Thursday, September 24th, 2020. Thank you for watching this video update that we call The Briefing. When the coronavirus hit back in March, in one moment, Calvary Church was quarantined for several months, and we did not meet in person for almost 4 months. During the early days of the pandemic, I was praying and thinking about ways that we could stay connected. And an idea popped into my mind because of a podcast that I've told you about before. Dr. Albert Mohler, the president of Southern Baptist Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, has a podcast called The Briefing, where he talks about contemporary world happenings and the importance of a Christian worldview in looking at many of these happenings. And so I began to think about what we could do and started to call this the Calvary Briefing. Well, last Friday, Dr. Mohler had a special edition of his briefing. And in our world today, with so many things happening and so many things happening quickly, you might wonder what happened that Dr. Mohler came back from a day off and taped a special episode of his briefing. Well, it was the death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Judge Ginsburg died after a long battle with cancer at the age of 87. She was appointed to the Supreme Court in 1993 by President Clinton. And although I do not follow the cases of the Supreme Court carefully, I will admit that in the cases that I cared about, Judge Ginsburg almost never ruled the way that I would have preferred her to rule. Her death, however, is a solemn time, a time to remember her family, and a time to reflect on the brevity of life. But this time has not been a solemn time. It's almost been like every other big event in 2020. It's been politicized, and it is serving to polarize people, to put us on opposite ends of an issue. The Ginsburg family released information saying that Judge Ginsburg's last request was that her position on the Supreme Court not be filled until a new president was installed. And the craziness begins, and the craziness continues and goes and goes. Several thoughts have come to my mind after listening to Dr. Mohler and after reading some articles, one of them by a guy named Clint Archer. No matter what you think about Judge Ginsburg, her decisions, her judgments, or her very appointment, all of those things were out of your hands. Like all other Supreme Court justices, she did not run for office, she was appointed. And for well over a quarter of a century, Judge Ginsburg ruled on cases that had direct control over issues that you and I face that impact our lives. I don't really know if she really did have a last request from her deathbed. If her deathbed request is what we have been told, I actually feel pretty sad for her. No matter how powerful we are, no matter how much control we have, the moment we die, that control is gone. Consider these words from the 2nd chapter of the ancient book of Ecclesiastes. For what can the man do who comes after the king? Only what has already been done. For of the wise, as of the fool, there is no enduring remembrance, seeing that in the days to come, all will have been forgotten. How the wise dies, just like the fool. Sometimes a person who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave everything to be enjoyed by someone who did not toil for it. The death of Justice Ginsburg reminds me once again that my worldview, your worldview, matters. The death of Justice Ginsburg ought to make us pause and think about many things. One thing to think about is the challenge of being a judge. To sit behind a desk and make rulings that are good and right and just and fair and according to the law, that's a very difficult undertaking. But in the moment that Justice Ginsburg died, she moved from being a very powerful judge here on earth to being a defendant. She has been pounding the gavel in judgment, and now she will face the judge of the universe. Hebrews 9:27 says, "And just as it is appointed for man to die once, and after that comes judgment." It points us to that obvious truth that life lived here on earth matters. We will one day stand before the judge of the universe, each one of us, and we will have to give an account for the way that we have lived our lives. What will you do when you come to that moment? Your only hope is for an advocate to intercede effectively on your behalf. And the gospel that we preach and teach and proclaim and live, the gospel of Jesus Christ is the good news that we can have sins expunged from our record, paid for by Christ's sacrifice on the cross. And we can have righteousness imputed to us so that when the judge of the universe looks at us, he doesn't see the filthy rags of our sin, but he sees the beautiful righteousness of Jesus Christ. This is true for whoever believes. Our world today is full of words. So many of these words are meaningless, but people keep repeating them to be polite. One common reaction to the death of the Supreme Court justice is to say, "Rest in peace, Judge Ginsburg." I quote Clint Archer. "For her, the wishes of those left behind are as ineffectual as her own dying wish. And the same can be said of each one of us. But you have the chance to make peace with the judge now, if you have not already done so. But the second after you die will be 1 second too late. You'll have no more control. There's only one way to rest in peace, and that's to rest in Jesus." I never had the opportunity to meet Judge Ginsburg, and obviously had no opportunity to have any kind of a relationship with her. But I do know some people who believe that they are in control of their lives and that Jesus doesn't matter. And because of the thoughts that are a part of this briefing, I'm going to try to tell them one more time that they will face the judge of the universe when they die, and that they will need the only advocate that can help them on that day, Jesus. I'm going to tell people one more time. Tell somebody.